about an hour ago, there was very serious rocket firing from Gaza, air raid sirens throughout central Israel. Actually, there were booms outside, not far from where we live as well. I assume this is all part of Hamas's welcome party for President Biden, who's coming tomorrow. And I think the Biden visit is also really interesting. What is really particularly noteworthy is that Secretary of State Blinken is here all the time, and Blinken participates. This is somewhere between strange to bizarre. Blinken participates in the Security Cabinet meetings, not as an observer. He participates. And not only does he participate, but there's now a side room for him where he gets documents, reviews documents, tweaks documents, changes documents. I've been around the block. I've never heard of a Secretary of State of country A participating in security meetings of country B and being an active participant. That to me is noteworthy. And I think the reason for the Biden visit tomorrow, on the one hand, he's coming in solidarity, to be with us. I think the real reason he's coming is to make clear to Netanyahu there are limits to power. I think that's the reason he's coming. With respect to the north, so you are right. It's almost 9 here. At about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there was first at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. First at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and previously, like somewhere in the morning, at least track of these, there was pretty serious firing from Hezbollah, or at least from the north into Israel. A major city in northern Israel, northern Israel, called Metula. I think by now everybody's left Metula, because it is really the target of Hezbollah fire. 3 Israelis, 1 Israeli, and 2 soldiers were wounded today. And if you ask me, Hezbollah can't decide, join the conflict, don't join the conflict. Join the conflict, don't join the conflict. They clearly are sending messages sometimes this way, sometimes that way. I think from the Israeli perspective, a 2-front war, which is what this would be. We've had this before in the 67 war and in the 1973 Yom Kippur war. 2-front wars are complicated.
Your role that you served in the IDF, how do you describe what you did? Because you worked in Gaza for so long, right?
No, I did. I was legal advisor of the Gaza Strip from 94 to 97. I served all told in Gaza 5 years, from 92 to 97. But what's relevant to our conversation is when I served as the legal advisor of the Gaza Strip, where I was involved in legal advice on operational counterterrorism decision-making. I want to emphasize this is different. And terminology is important. Netanyahu has used the word war. And war is different from counterterrorism. And what really worries me as someone who was a legal advisor to operational decision-making is, are we giving soldiers clear orders? Counterterrorism is different from war. Counterterrorism is person-specific. I was involved in targeted killing decision-making, which is person-specific. Person A, based on the intelligence information, presents a threat, minimize the threat, kill the person. It's like U.S. drone policy. War is different. Wars are, wars. And when Netanyahu used the word war, I don't know if he used it for rhetorical purposes. He's not a lawyer, and I'm not exactly sure what he meant. But the word war is different from counterterrorism. And the other thing that's important to note is that the IDF, Israel Defense Forces spokesman, we have always said when we captured Palestinian terrorists, we arrested them, we brought them to trial, and then they were detained. They were almost the criminal law paradigm. The word that the IDF spokesman has been using, translating from Hebrew, is they are in captivity, which is Geneva Convention. That is not detainee, arrestee, by our version of Miranda rights. That's not what Geneva Convention talks about. Somebody who's captured, name, rank, serial number, and can't be brought to trial unless you commit a war crime. And the word in Hebrew, shvuim, in English, captive, has been used at least twice. And I can't figure out for the life of me if that's a slip of the tongue or that's in line with Netanyahu's war paradigm rather than counterterrorism paradigm. And I think that's something that needs to be discussed, because that is a game changer.
In your perspective, how do you feel the IDF has handled this? Because it's not just Hamas now, it's obviously an increased presence from Hezbollah in the north, which the last time we spoke, there was a little bit of activity up there, but it seems as though it's increased.
First of all, I think the IDF has recovered from the initial catastrophic last Saturday, which is a failure every which way institutionally. hang on. It needs to be stated and restated and restated. The individual actions of IDF soldiers and officers, of Israeli policemen and police officers, there are no words that describe individual heroism. It's beyond extraordinary. There are also no words for the thousands of Israelis who are rushing to come back to go up, be called up for reserve duty. So I think today is Tuesday. It took the IDF X days to get its footing under it. It's under it. I think by now it's more of the IDF that we're accustomed to, but I want to add something. If you look really carefully at the video clips that Hamas made available about how it penetrated Israel last Saturday, these are not terrorists. These are commando units. They were well prepared. It took them 2 years to prepare this. They came in on motorcycles. They had maps. They had electronic equipment. They knew exactly what they were doing. This is not what we're used to. This is very different. So when the IDF talks about, or whoever, Netanyahu talks about destroying Hamas, I mean, the rhetoric is great. I mean, it's just one thing Netanyahu is good at, it's rhetoric. Not much other than that. Now we're talking about months that this will take with respect to Hamas. And I think the IDF is having that wake-up call, if you will, that what had been assumed about Hamas's abilities, Hamas's operational abilities are far superior to what they had been assumed to be, because they are not functioning as a terrorist organization. They're functioning, again, using Netanyahu, quasi-army, if not full army, commando units. This is not, we have an expression in Hebrew, which is zbang v'gamarnu, which translates into, hit over the head and be done with it. That's not like that. And especially if Hezbollah joins it, that will complicate this even more, which I think the reason, again, back to President Biden, I think he's here to make it clear to Netanyahu that there are limits to all this, and maybe there's a better way to solve this. By the way, whatever the word solve means.
I did want to ask you about the dome system that's used. I'm not sure what if you had any personal.
Oh my God, we can't live without Iron Dome. Iron Dome is a lifesaver. So when the rocket is fired from Gaza, there are Iron Dome sites. There's one not far from where we live. And it reads, I don't know how the algorithm works. It reads the rocket and it reads where it's the trajectory, right? And then the Iron Dome intercepts, it's called an intercept. It's not 100%, it's somewhere in the 90s. And that's what enables us to go about our lives. But more than that, in addition to the intercept, when the rocket is fired and the Iron Dome reads it, that's when the air raid siren goes off.